up and into the pesky pole. And that's going to get down the line. That one looks like it'll stay fair. And goodbye, home run. The pesky pole.
The 2-2. Swinging a fly ball deep down the right field line, slicing by the pesky pole. And that ball hits the pesky pole, which means it's going a home run.
3-2 high fly down the right field line, slicing toward the pesky pole into the corner, and that ball is gone. A green can. Now with a high fly down the right field line, headed toward the pesky pole. Is he going to tuck it inside? Indeed he does. That is gone.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Pesky Podcast. I am your host, the Ritt. With me is my co-host, my man, DC. What's going on, man? It's been a while since we got to do a little one-on-one time with us.
I think it's been almost since the beginning when we started it, to be honest with you, if I'm thinking about it, other than a couple interviews we did. I think Hunter Dobbins and Devin Marrero was the last time I think we were kind of one-on-one.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, man, have you got a chance to sit there and skim through some of the earlier ones?
I actually did a little bit the other day when we went up to Boston. I was sitting in the hotel room when my dad was sleeping and threw my AirPods in and listened to a little bit.
Man, we have come a long way, my man. You have come a long way. Like, there's some of those in the beginning I just can't listen to. Like, I'm trying to skim through a little bit so I can try to pick out where we had the Red Sox placed and the record and everything, you know, to try to get all that to fruition. And some of those are left for the archives, you know what I mean? But here we are.
For a lot of different reasons.
Season's almost over. We're almost at episode 50. And here we are. How ironic it was. Our last podcast episode we played off-season GM. The following day, Chaim Bloom gets fired, and we're looking for a new GM. How crazy is that, DC?
Yeah, it's nuts too. I'm saying how we should give him a 2-year extension. I completely thought that he had 2 years left on his deal, but it was only next year was his last. But it's funny, I said that we should, keep him in here. And then the next day, I think the day that you released it, we got news. I had a couple of texts from a couple of buddies. Josh, that he was on for the Orioles. He was very baffled. He was like, "What the hell are we doing? Or what the hell are you guys doing?" He's like, "Other than a couple of trades, I thought he was doing pretty well." So it was a little confusing, a little surprising. But that's kind of the MO of the front, the ownership group, especially with the last one, Dabrowski was fired about the same time through the end of the season. So surprises me, but doesn't at the same time.
Yeah, I kind of hear 50-50 things going on about Chaim. Let's go through some of the recent stuff that I've heard since, and it's always crazy. Did you hear some of the stuff about Chaim Bloom had a chance to trade Chris Sale, but didn't?
I saw reports on that. How true it is, I'm not sure. Obviously, hindsight 2020. Hindsight 2020. Obviously how this year went. You probably should have pulled the trigger on that, but I don't know. I don't know what to believe.
Yeah, Verdugo was supposed to get. There was an offer to go to the Yankees for one of their young pitchers.
I think Clark Schmidt was the guy that was involved.
Okay, if these reporters have all this information, why wasn't it released earlier? You know what I mean? All of a sudden, now we're gonna let everything out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny timing.
We could have went and traded Verdugo. Dude, why? Tell us then. We are the Red Sox fan base. We are the ones buying tickets, buying the merchandise to put John Henry's pockets lined up. And all of a sudden, here we are, last month of the season, 2 weeks left. And now all of a sudden, I thought it was ridiculous how from the beginning of the season, what John Henry quoted at winter weekend or winter meetings to now, Now all of a sudden, it's about championships. Wait, isn't that what it's always about? Like, that should be what it's about all the time. Putting together a championship team that's sustainable. That's the key that hurt us this year. Our starting pitcher wasn't sustainable for 162. So what were your thoughts when you sit there and John Henry did that big little news conference and, now it's time for us to win championships?
I mean, to put it bluntly, I think he's full of shit. You know what I mean? I'll touch on what you said about, where was always reports when, in the middle of the season about the Verdugo trade or the Chris Sale. There had to have been a little bit of a leak there from somebody in the front office or ownership group. Because obviously Chaim Bloom's very, he keeps everything close to him. He doesn't really leak a lot of stuff. He's kind of like Theo Epstein in that regard. You never knew what was going on, and then boom, something happens. Yeah, I mean, you're the Boston Red Sox. That should be the goal every year, no matter what. I think they tied his hands a little bit. We were just talking, before we jumped on here. I personally think that they wanted Dombrowski to trade Betts, and I think Dombrowski didn't want to do that for a lot of reasons. One, how does he explain that in his next interviews? Because he probably knew he was on the way out. And two, it's just obviously that's the first big move Chaim Bloom was, that had to make, as the Red Sox baseball, head of baseball. So, I mean, he had a tough time already coming in. They wanted him to reset the payroll. They wanted him to build the farm, which we have like the fifth best farm system in baseball right now. I think, for what he had, he did pretty well. Obviously, he missed on a couple of things. I still question the Renfroe JBJ trade, but also there's been a lot of, reports that came out that Renfroe was a clubhouse cancer. So, at the end of the day, was it really that bad of a trade? He could have, helped a lot more than it hurt, but we'll never know because obviously he got traded. I don't know. I feel like you got to go for it every year when you're the Red Sox. And I don't know if they gave Chaim Bloom as much ammunition and support to do that with everything that they asked as far as resetting the payroll. Obviously, Chris Sale's contract extension really hindered that ability because that's a lot of money hung up for a guy that wasn't really on the field a lot. And that hurts to say because you know how much I love Chris Sale. But yeah, just still kind of confused. Obviously he's made, decisions that weren't the best, but every GM does. I know he's not the GM, but every, guy that calls the shots in the front office does. Don't get it perfect every time. Just very, very perplexed as how this all went down. But like I said, at the end of the day, I'm not surprised. They let Dombrowski go 2 weeks left in the season or around there. So it kind of just fits the bill. I don't think he had a chance the whole time.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to touch base a little bit with Chaim's, some of his decisions he made. But let's sit there and talk real quick. The report from my man Jeff Fletcher that we brought on here when we covered the Angels of Shohei Ohtani, locker room cleared out. Like, what the hell? Like, it's good for us because the rumor mill, of course, is all over the place. I've said and brought this up quite often that Shohei's connection to and the deal he has with New Balance could be a key to him coming to Boston. What's one of the biggest leaks out there right now? He's really, really tight and close with the GM from New Balance. Also, he loves talking to Yoshida. So that's two key things.
Yeah.
Plus side. The minus side is, everybody's like, do you want to pay for a bona fide DH? Do you see this guy play? You put him one year DH, and they were like, oh, we need starting pitching. He gets we don't know if it's what type of surgery he's getting. Is it going to be the Trevor Story surgery? Is it going to be full-blown Tommy John surgery? We don't know. But the pitching will come. He will be back on that mound. But as of right now, the best player on the planet has the potential to come to the Boston Red Sox. And the biggest thing, all these naysayers, do you want to pay a DH? Dude, we paid David Ortiz. And don't get me wrong, we didn't pay David Ortiz, in my opinion, enough sometimes. And most of his contracts, you remember, were a 1 year, 2 year, we're play him out, see how he feels. Okay, we're gonna another one, you know what I mean? We got to deal with Ortiz just playing DH. So I think the Ohtani thing all depends. To start with us, if JT and what he does with his player option. So DC, I laid a lot out there for you. What are your thoughts on the Shohei emptying his locker, possibility coming to Boston, and a JT player option?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the emptying his locker. I think it was a little weird how they came out and they put him on the IL and kind of made it seem like it was like an injury. A player when they get hurt, they don't just clean out their locker that quick. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, haven't spent any time in a major league clubhouse, but when we were on Anna's space, it was right after the trade deadline, and I even said I think they really dropped the ball in not trading him. I don't think he's going to go back there. Obviously, the writing's on the wall. Then it is now even more. You got to get pieces for him. I know they were trying to go for it, but they traded for Giolito. Kept Ohtani, which I think was a bad idea. You got to make moves to get some capital for him because he's not coming back. As far as Justin Turner, obviously I'd love to have him come back, but you never know. I think he will. I think he'll ultimately end up there, but I'm fine with keeping Yoshida in left field, full time next year. If that means we have Ohtani in our lineup, he's the best player in baseball, in a long, long time, if not the best ever. I mean, dare I say it, but yeah. And as far as the surgeries, it would be tough for him to get the second, Tommy John in his career, but he hits 40 some home runs. He hits for average. He stole 20 bases this year. I mean, that's unheard of. That power, the RBIs and the stolen bases. And I think with the injuries too, I think his contract will go down a lot more than what we thought it would be, because you were seeing about $600 million was what it was going to take to get him. Mm-hmm. I think you knock it down to around 500. If John Henry's serious about spending and going for championships, then this would be the move to make. You have Yoshida there as his friend that could also help with Yamamoto coming over in free agency. So ultimately, I hope he does end up here. It's a big if, but I think it would make a lot of Red Sox fans happy and kind of help them get over the whole Chaim Bloom, experiment that obviously failed. And just the PR of it all was terrible.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to get those big numbers like we did before. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be a shorter contract now. I think we're going to try 3-4 years maybe, pay a decent amount. I'm thinking 3-4 years, maybe, close to 275, 250, something like that. I can sit there and see maybe 5 years. I can sit there and see that. And then everybody sees Ohtani get back to his form. And then he can he's still young enough where he can get that back end contract, that still big money makes. So, you think about that. Man, just to think, like, when we went and did our postseason fantasy GM thing, I went Burns and Woodruff, but we really didn't think Ohtani, like you, George, and myself, didn't really think Ohtani could have been in the equation. George is like, well, let's try to go, get Trout, It's crazy now that we're talking, and of course we're always. It's going to be crazy all the way up until that ink is drying. All the talk is going to be on where's Ohtani going? Where's Ohtani going? So this is like pretty much our first podcast, and we're probably going to be mentioning Ohtani for the at least once or twice for every podcast till he signs wherever he signs.
Yeah, I'm going to get pretty sick of talking about it, to be honest with you, because it's going to be a ride. But unfortunately, I don't think a 4-year deal gets it done. Other teams are going to be offering him 10-year deals, and he can't turn that down, especially with the injury history that he has. And you can see the Yankees throwing a lot of money at him, even though they don't have much money to spend. But they are the Yankees. A guy like that doesn't come around very often, if at all. Then you got the Dodgers. They'll probably offer him a shit ton of money. But I mean, I'd still give him 10 years, 500 mil, maybe a little bit more, just to, get him in Boston. Because you got to think of the money that he's going to bring in as far as merchandise, jersey sales, the Japanese fans that will come and see him that don't come to Boston. And, now the money that he brings in for a franchise is going to be substantial.
Oh, man. Do you remember when we played the Angels and the amount of fans just watching him get off the bus to go into Fenway? Like, that was just a 3-game series. Man, how crazy is it going to be if he's there all the time? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'd be crazy, man. I mean, I would love to have him. I don't know if it's feasible, but if John Henry's serious, maybe he'll make a decision that he needs to make to kind of win back the fan base. I mean, they have a pretty bad reputation with their, Red Sox Nation. They've been very wishy-washy the last few years. I know they wanted to reset payroll, but at the end of the day, you're the goddamn Boston Red Sox. So you got to spend it. You got to, you also got to make those trades in the season, make those trades that make your team better, not even just signings. And that's something that I don't think Chaim Bloom did. I think if I had to pick out one thing that he was not very good at was, and I think I've read it even too, he can't work quick, make those quick decisions, especially that's huge around the deadline time. You gotta come together pretty quickly. And he overvalued his players a lot, I think, undervalued the players he was going for. And that really hinders your ability to get a trade done. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see Ohtani. That would be amazing. I think it would help a lot, depending on how the surgery goes, if he can come back and be that pitcher he was. But he's still able to hit you 40 home runs, driving over 100 runs. He hits for average, and that underrated skill of stealing bases. You don't see that much kind of tied all together.
Yeah, you touched base a little bit. What I was going to bring up, how crazy and ridiculous. There was articles written that GMs would look at their phone and see Chaim Bloom calling, and they would dread picking it up because, just like you said, he overvalued his players, undervalued, who he was trying to get, and it's like, man, you're too nitpicky.
It's almost like an oxymoron too. You're undervaluing the guy that you're calling them about. You're already putting yourself at a disadvantage and almost kind of insulting the other GM you're talking to.
Yeah. And, a lot of the GMs didn't want to deal with him, and I can see that. But let's go. You sit there and said that you're sure you're going to be tired of talking about Ohtani till he signs. Let's start with Chaim Bloom signing, and something I'm still sick and tired of. He signs with the Boston Red Sox, and the first thing he's told to do, get rid of Mookie Betts. So, man, that is not a way to make a grand entrance in the city of Boston, because even when Mookie was in for the series, and of course, reporters are still asking him, he flat out said, "Don't ask me, ask John Henry." So I personally never thought there was an offer on the table that, was anywhere feasible. They lowballed Mookie because they didn't want him here, because for some reason they didn't want to pay the man, So we traded him, and we've got Connor Wong, Alex Verdugo, and Jeter Downs. Two of them are still here with the Boston Red Sox. Jeter Downs, we DFA'd, and now he's killing it down in DC. Yep. No pun intended. So, what were your thoughts on the first mission of Chaim Bloom? Hey, we're going to give you the GM spot, but you got to get rid of Mookie Betts, and you're going to take the shit for it.
Yeah, I mean, that was tough. That's one of the hardest things to do coming in, especially in the market of Boston. They're a big team. A big market team. Fan base is very passionate, and you're going to trade their franchise guy, a fan favorite, one of the best players we've had in a very, very long time. A guy that wasn't even really a big prospect, you know what I mean? He kind of just popped up out of nowhere, came into the majors and, really found himself But yeah, I mean, that's got to be tough. And I was thinking about it. Yeah, they could have got a lot more for him, but a lot of people forget that we were able to dump David Price's contract as well. And I think that really, shifted the balance scale on that one. But yeah, I couldn't imagine signing that, coming into that city, making that decision. Like I said, I think Dave Dombrowski was told to trade him. Obviously didn't want to do that because, I mean, look at the backlash now. We're still talking about it 3 years later, if not, 3.5 years later. Tough thing to do. I mean, I kind of feel for the guy, but like I said, he did make, some decisions I didn't agree with, but you're coming into I feel like he had to know that too, though, when he was interviewing, like, he wasn't traded. I'm probably going to be the guy that does that. So it comes with the territory. You signed up for it, but it doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah. And then he was the GM during COVID. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he was brought in to revamp our farm system. COVID took a whole year away. No minor league baseball. So that undervalues all your minor leaguers. You can't sit there and evaluate, trade talent, get your talent moved up. It's crazy. Not only that, when COVID happened, then they started lowering the rounds of draft also. So, it hurt the MLB draft process overall. So, what are your thoughts on, his hands being tied not only for the Betts thing, but now all of a sudden COVID happens, and now you're telling the guy to work on and improve your farm system, and a whole year's gone now.
Yeah, that's had to be tough. I forget. They took a lot of rounds out of the draft, which we all know how much Chaim, values, the minor league players, the young players. So you're already at a disadvantage there. You're already at the disadvantage that you have to trade Mookie, throwing in David Price's contract. Yeah, man, it's just a tough situation to be in. I think he made the best out of it. I mean, I know I've been hard on Verdugo. Still not really sold on him. I think he kind of fooled me there for the first couple of months of the season. Hate to say that because I know that's your boy. But what are you really ever going to get that much, what you deserve for Mookie Betts? No, especially with COVID, like you just said, throwing all those elements into the equation. I just feel for the guy, man. It just sucks. Sucks for the fans. It sucks for him. And we all know how brutal Red Sox Nation is. One small move and you got the same, big group of guys on Twitter just bashing you to no end. You can't do any right as far, he was already written off by probably 25% of the fan base after that trade was made. Whether he didn't really have a choice in it. He had to just do what he had to do. They had to get it done. You know what I mean? Because that would have lingered. Because you could have kept him, gave him a qualifying offer. I don't know. I think he made the right decision. Well, I would have liked to get a little bit more. But as I think about it, the David Price getting dropped off, that was huge. And his goal was to reset the payroll. And that was the first step to do it and knocked off a lot of money. Yeah, man, this COVID screwed him. Ownership screwed him. I think he just did the best he could as far as that. It's just, I don't know, man, it's a tough situation.
Yeah, and then let's fast forward to this past off season. And I know I messed with you a lot on this one, where Xander Bogaerts was let go.
Jesus. Yeah,
where are you now when I need you?
Yeah, thanks for that. And I remember that when you told me that he signed with the Dodgers, and then a week later he signs with the it's a joke, and then he signs with the Padres. But you think about the Red Sox as a whole in the last, 10 years. Excuse me. John Lester, same thing. They gave him a pretty shitty, offer the year going into the year that he got traded, the offseason going into that. Really terrible offer for a guy that, pitched his heart out. Hell, he came back from cancer and, he pitched his balls off for this, this franchise. Bogaerts, we almost did it with Devers. I don't know if a deal gets done, and this might be a crazy take, but I don't know if a deal gets done as quickly as it did if they didn't get booed like they did. Remember that? I forget what event they were at. Ownership got booed.
Well, when Jared Krause was interviewing him.
What was that? But there was another thing where they had like a Celtics game or something.
Oh yeah, they're at the Celtics game too, and they were getting
and they
booed
got
out of the
booed like a motherfucker. And then 2-3 days later they fly down to Dominican and they make a deal. I think that they, as much as they don't say fans play into it, I think they do. I mean, granted, I'm really happy that happened because we needed to keep Devers. If they would have fucked up the Devers thing, I think I'd be really contemplating if I wanted to be a baseball fan. You know what I mean? You lose Bogey. I mean, granted, he didn't have the best year this year, but I think he was dealing with a wrist injury. But you can't lose a guy like that and then, drop the ball on Devers. You need to have a guy that's going to be there, that's been there. The last guy that's, I think you said it last show, he's the last player that was on the 2018 team. But yeah, I mean, the ownership really annoys
if Chris Sale gets traded or
Chris Sale.
Devers would be the last one.
Yeah.
Do you sit there like the last year with Bogey? Every time media kept asking him about a contract. That's got to annoy you and work against you playing well for you. You know what I mean? You can only hear that so many times. And that had to really, she's even saying the same thing. Like, she sat back there saying they could have worked a contract to get Bogey and Devers both. See?
I definitely think so. Yeah, it's just, I think they lowballed him. I don't think they really had any intention of signing him after the season started. Once that deadline hit, I know there was reports out there from John Heyman or something like that there was momentum, and then that was the same day that he signed with the Padres. I remember coming to work and just being like, "What the fuck, man!" Like, I just the ball was dropped all the way around. I also think it affected him mentally. I think he was one of those guys that wasn't the best in the clubhouse, and I hate to say that, but I think you're right. I think all the questions got to him. I mean, he's human too. He grows up with this franchise. He's done a lot. He's won 2 World Series with them and played a big role, in all those years. And then you sit back and you think like, man, am I really not good enough to get the money that I deserve? And I think that definitely played into, his personality in the season, in the clubhouse. I mean, his play wasn't too bad, but, it wasn't where it needed to be. But I don't think the Red Sox had any intention of signing him after they made it through the deadline at spring training. And personally, I still stand by the fact, I think if that was the case, as hard as it would have been, I think they should have moved him at the deadline last year. I think they should have moved JD Martinez. The wishy-washy, both sides of the fence thing doesn't really work. They were 3.5 games out going into the wild card not this year, last year. And like I said, it goes back to what I said with Chaim. I don't think he's there yet as far as making trades. We were spoiled. We had a guy like Deal and Dave Dombrowski, who can make a deal on a dime. And I don't want to speak for him, but I just don't know if he has the guts at this point in time to make those deals, make those big splashes. You're either going to go for it or you got to be smart for the future. You built the farm system up, but I think like I said, he just dropped the ball when it came to trade deadline. Other than that Schwarber trade in 2021, he didn't really do much at the deadlines. I know there wasn't one in 2020 because of COVID, but you got to do something. You got to pick one side of the fence. I think he would have had a little bit more respect from Red Sox Nation if he would have been more concrete on his stance and not so. The transparency just needed to be there. I know you got to, hold the trades close to you. You don't want them to leak, that because it also affects player relationships with you, with the front office. But you got to pick a side.
Yeah, I always thought Chaim would be as he's better suited, I think, as an assistant GM, where he could help build a farm system. But with Dombrowski, he had a blank checkbook. You got to sit there and admit that, and that blank checkbook, I think, got him in trouble when he went and extended Chris Sale. He went and extended Price, Eovaldi, gave those big contracts, to them. And then when it came to our key pieces, Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts, there was no money left. And that's when ownership was like, no. Like, do you think – now everybody's like, oh, pitching, you need pitching. Do you think if Dombrowski doesn't blow the checkbook on Sale, Eovaldi, Price, do you think we could have kept our small core together with Betts, Bogey, and Devers?
100%. But, I mean, you're kind of playing with, like, I totally know what you're saying, but you're almost playing with fire at that because without those three guys, we don't win 2018. You know what I mean? I think Eovaldi was the heart and soul of that team. A lot of people don't really talk about. I mean, think about that one game the one game they lost in the World Series. He came in and pitched in relief and gave up that walk-off. You know, as you know, as much as it sucked to lose that game, but I think him just pitching and doing that, you know, just showed his heart, you know, and showed that he really gave a shit about the team, gave a shit about the city, and wanted to win. But I think in a financial way, I think we have Bogey. You know, I think we have a lot more flexibility. And honestly, how do you not, unless you know for sure that, you know, Chris Sale had stuff going on, because I'll say it to the end, I think that he really sold his arm for that 2018 World Series, which I respect the hell out of. I love Chris Sale, his accountability. He'll be the first one to tell you that he hasn't lived up to that. But I think we absolutely keep Bogey. We have a lot more flexibility to do other things. I think we could have kept Schwarber, re-signed him after the 2021 season. I think he was a huge part of that second half. And he gelled well. I mean, he came in and for the half season he was there, I think he was a clubhouse leader. I think he did a lot more than just on the field. But yeah, for sure, I think Bogey's still here if he doesn't make those deals. David Price one, you know, you kind of had to do that. We really needed a frontline starter. I mean, obviously we had, you know, we didn't have Sale yet, did we, when we signed Price?
I don't think so, no.
I think we got Sale in 2017, right? Something like that. And we signed Price in 2016, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm getting old, man. I can't remember.
Yeah. I'm just saying more along the lines of those ridiculous contracts after we won 2018. Like he extended Eovaldi out for, what was it, 4 more years?
4 years. I think it was like 20 mil a year.
So, but he went and he did some good things for us. He did a lot of bad things. I loved how, was it last year when they did the wishy-washy thing? He traded Bazzi and got it, and look what he got us overall. He got us Wilyer Abreu. He got us Valdez. And those guys, Abreu's already, you know, he's going to be vying for a starting position next year.
Yeah, I feel like Abreu was almost like an afterthought of that trade. You know what I mean? I think Valdez had a lot of momentum coming in. A lot of people were excited about him because of what he did in the minor leagues beyond forward. And then Abreu comes up and I think he's done amazing, man. I think he's definitely going to be a part of the team, be a key role in the next few years. And it's crazy because I'll be honest with you, I didn't really think about him too much until we started paying attention to the minor leagues once we started this, and then going down to going up to Scranton Wilkes-Barre. He's a great hitter. I'm excited to see what he does, but it's just funny because he was an afterthought to me as far as that trade. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't really know too much about him. You know, I read up on Valdez quite a bit and was excited for his pop. You know, I still think he could be a part of the team. It just depends where he fits. You know, what we decide to do with the middle infield. Obviously, we have Trevor Story. We got Marcelo Meyer probably coming up at the end of the year next year. So there's a lot of question marks, but I think Abreu is the biggest part of that trade now.
Definitely. I think another thing real quick here, once we signed Trevor Story, that to me, I was like, we're not signing Bogaerts. We're not. We went and got a lesser shortstop for, you know, for the amount of money we gave him. We're not signing Bogey again. You know, that was my overtake. So, but let's switch up. The season's almost over, and well, we've got plenty of candidates to the next GM spot. This here was from the Boston Herald, written by, I apologize, I messed up your last name, Max Cirillo. I'm guessing that's how you say it. And he writes, Chaim Bloom era in Boston is officially over, and in the coming weeks, the Red Sox will undertake what club CEO Sam Kennedy promised to be a broad search for a new baseball boss. Who will be the next person to run the Red Sox baseball operation? What title will they hold? Will the Red Sox hire one person or two? Kennedy said all options are on the table. Other than former Red Sox general manager Theo Epstein, who is presumably more interested in tackling new challenges than revisiting old ones at this stage in his career. What are your thoughts on the Red Sox possibly getting two general managers for the job?
I don't really think about that. I mean, off the top of my head, I'd rather just one guy that's in charge. I think you already have enough people in there, voicing their opinions. I'm not saying there would be, but there could be a power struggle there in making decisions. Could also hinder, making a decision in a quick amount of time. Say if there's a guy that's in free agency that, wants to get signed right away. What if they don't both agree? And what if, they kind of get lost in the sauce a little bit and, next thing you know, they waste a little too much time. I'm just a fan of just having one guy, I don't like to have too many Chiefs and not enough Indians. I used to hear that all the time. I'm more of a fan of just having one guy in charge. Yeah.
So let's go to what a lot of people are saying is one of the better front runners, Sam Fuld, the Phillies GM. Fuld used to be a player who quickly rose to the front office ranks following his retirement from 2017 in baseball. In only 3 years, he was hired as a vice president and GM of the Philadelphia Phillies. Now he is underneath our good friend Dave Dombrowski,
who hates the Red Sox.
Yes, and he helped build the Phillies to win a National League pennant and came within 2 wins of a World Series championship. So he's also a New Hampshire native, grew up a Red Sox fan. So what are your thoughts on, Fuld? He already has some ties, and he's already helped build the Phillies to a powerhouse they are now.
No, I think he's a good candidate. Like I just alluded to, which actually ironically was in the article. I swear I didn't steal that, but I don't know how much Dombrowski will kind of dissuade him from coming here. But growing up a Red Sox fan is definitely a huge step in a direction of trying to convince somebody. I think he's from New England as well, if I read that correctly. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, he's done some good stuff with Dombrowski down in Philly. They obviously have a great team. They're doing really good things in the last few years, and they just have even more of a brighter future going forward. And I don't want people to take this the wrong way, but I'm also a fan of having younger guys in the front office. We had Theo Epstein, who was really young when he took over. Kind of a new way of thinking. I think with anything, I think when you're a little bit older, you do things a certain way for so long, you're kind of stuck in your own ways, your old ways. But I wouldn't be too upset if he came over. I think you're mute, buddy. You're mute.
I think Dombrowski might sit there and sway him and give him a little upside of what exactly he'd be getting himself into, which I think that could hinder the conversation dramatically.
Yeah.
So, former Astros GM James Click, he's coming off of one of the strangest runs as top baseball executive in recent memory. After taking over for the former GM Jeff Lundhow following the Astros steal signing scandal, led the Astros ensuing to 3 straight AL championship series, 2 pennants, and a last season's World Series. So Alex Cora, really familiar with this guy from his days over in the Astros. What are your thoughts that he could sit there and come? Because Click has also joined the Blue Jays as vice president of baseball strategy. So, what are your thoughts? Cora has the relationship with him already. So it's kind of like he already could have his manager right there with him.
Yeah, I mean, all feelings aside as far as, as the Astros, because obviously the whole cheating scandal, but he comes from a winning pedigree. They put good baseball teams together, regardless if they cheated or not, but they have, very good teams, obviously for the better part of the decade, I would say. So he does have that going for him. And yeah, we were talking off air. I think a guy that comes over that takes over baseball operations is going to want to have, a say in his own coaching staff. Typically when a GM goes or a chief baseball officer goes, so does the coaching staff. But I think Cora definitely it has a very, very good chance of staying, and we'll also talk about possibly him going up. But yeah, I mean the relationship's there. I think Cora's a good manager, in the right spots. You give him the right people. Obviously, he's made some terrible decisions as far as bullpen usage and all that. But we kind of touched on that last interview or last show. But I don't think it'd be a bad idea. He has, like I said, he comes from a winning pedigree. He knows what it takes to build a team. He's helped build teams, that have done really, really good, and definitely a good candidate in my eyes.
Yeah. Looking at the Astros organization, like overall, they have a great farm system. They've got great people running it. The organization likes to keep their people together. So I think now is definitely a time we need a GM that sees what core people we have and wants to keep them together for a long time while we're, improving our farm system. So I like him, and he's used to going into sticky situations. Took right over for the GM after the cheating scandal. So another one that's come up, Mike Hazen, the Diamondbacks GM, which is a little iffy. I don't think he would leave where he's at right now because the Diamondbacks are in limbo just like we are, where they're on the rise. So I think he personally would want to see it through. But he's Mike Hazen's left the Red Sox front office to become Arizona Diamondbacks GM in 2016. He has proven himself as an excellent steward of the franchise. He's on pace to lead the Diamondbacks to their fourth winning season in 7 years, something we haven't seen, in quite some time. During that stretch, he's also executed a successful rebuild, assembling a terrific core that could have Arizona in contention for years to come. So I don't personally think Hazen would want to come back to help us where we are when he's doing fantastic out there rebuilding Arizona. So what are your thoughts on that, DC?
No, I agree. I think he's got a good thing going. A lot of young stars. I mean, you have a guy like Corbin Carroll. I don't know if you really want to leave that behind. So I think you're completely right. Yeah, he has ties to the Red Sox. He was here. But why leave a good thing, just to, go try to do something else? I think he kind of rides that one out. I think that's just kind of thrown in there. I don't see him coming. Obviously, I'd be happy to have him. But like you said, we're both kind of in limbo, and this. I think they might be in a little bit better position than us at this moment, but I think that could change very quickly this offseason. Yeah.
Chris Antonetti, Guardians president of baseball operations. Boston Herald says this will be a real swing for the fences, but the Red Sox can poach Antonetti from Cleveland. It would be a massive steal. Antonetti is one of the most experienced and accomplished executives in the sport, having served in Cleveland's front office for 24 years, including the last 8 as president of baseball operations. During that time, he's led Cleveland to 4 division titles and a World Series appearance. The club never finished worse than second in the AL Central, with Antonetti running the show. Man, that would be a steal, but I hate to sit there and say it. That's not the AL East. You know what I mean? That Central is one of the worst divisions in baseball overall. And, never finished worse than second. It's because everybody else in first place kind of rotates in and out. You know, Kansas City gets their turn. The Twins get their turn. Chicago gets their turn. They never really are all on the same page overall at all. So, what were your thoughts if we were to be able to steal Antonetti?
I mean, this is kind of just speaking without really knowing him too well. I'd rather go a different route. You know what I mean? This is a big, I mean, hopefully we turn back into a big market team. I don't know how. I mean, obviously, he has done very well in Guardians. So I guess if he's doing well with that payroll, he could probably do a lot of good things here. I don't know. He's not my favorite.
I know who is your favorite. It's the guy we're coming up to right now. Brandon Gomes, Dodgers GM. Dodgers are one of the most Major League's model franchises, so hiring one of the organization's top decision makers seems like a no-brainer. Gomes is the Dodgers' #2 to president of baseball operations, Andrew Friedman. I'm not really sure, you know, if I don't think he's a fit for us, because if the Red Sox aren't giving the Dodgers players, who's Gomes going to be going after? You know what I mean? Because in the past, how many years, dating back to Carl Crawford's horrible contract, they went and they just helped us out every year, you know. But you do like Brandon Gomes, so you know. Tell us why you would sit there and want to bring Gomes in.
Yeah, I like him. He's a young guy. Obviously, I hope the Red Sox will kind of give him the freedom that the Dodgers do with their GM, you know, with spending the money. I just don't know if he will spend the money like they do, but exciting guy. He seems to knows baseball. He, you know, he's really climbed the ranks, like that article said, very quickly. I just think it'd be a nice shot in the arm. I think the reason I like younger front office, you know, executives is I feel like they're more relatable to the players. He knows what it takes to win. He knows what it takes to put a good team together. And with the you know, if he has the freedom from the ownership to do so, I think he could do great things.
Yeah. We have another one here, Carter Hawkins, the Cubs GM. Former college catcher of Vanderbilt. He spent a decade working in Cleveland's front office before joining former Red Sox executive Jed Hoyer's staff in Chicago in 2021. Hawkins has helped execute a fast-paced rebuild, with the Cubs stripping of the roster from 2016 World Series championship before quickly jumping back into postseason contention after 2 years down. I kind of like Hawkins myself. It's going to take a lot to get him away from Chicago there. I just think Hawkins, with the right people around him, if the owners let him do what his job is, he's did it for Chicago. Win a championship, strip down, come back. Win a championship, strip down, come back. Like, I can sit there and see him putting together pieces for us. But I don't know overall if that's what the fans of us up here in Boston, not us, but we're in Pennsylvania. But the fans in Boston, they don't like that in between time. They want to be in the hunt all the time. So maybe Hawkins might not be the person for the fit, but I think that he's one of the ones that are on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that, you know, he's able to kind of strip it down and, you know, rebuild very quickly. So that's one good positive. But like you said, you don't want to keep doing that over and over again. When you're in Boston, that's something that you consistently are just building as you go. You know, you rebuild and, you know, you strip down and rebuild in one off season. I think ultimately, like I said about Gomes, it depends on how much freedom the ownership gives. You know what I mean? A lot of these people that we've talked to are coming from small market teams, you know, a couple of them, you know, so they're kind of used to not having to spend money, but I wonder how they would react and being able to, you know, if they can do that in a small market, what can they do with a big market? I know Chicago is pretty decent with spending money, but I don't know. I don't know if he's a good fit, like I said, and especially can you really pry him away from Jed Hoyer? You know, they have a good thing going there. Jed Hoyer is a great GM. He does really great stuff, you know, as far as front office. So I just don't know if he'll come to us.
And that's what my mindset was. Chaim Bloom coming from Tampa to come up here. I thought, man, if he can do that down in Tampa, what can he do up here in Boston, dealing with, coming off of dealing Dave? I was thinking, man, they give this guy a blank checkbook up here, we'll be set. But little did I know, the trust fund was cut off, and it seems like some days Chaim Bloom was on the street corner, begging for change to try to get some of these players. So, Last person who I personally really want up there, Alex Cora. George and I have talked about it plenty of times. You've heard it. I want AC out. Like, he has a great relationship with the players. I love that. But I can't deal with any more of him blowing through our bullpen. Like, this year, we had the best bullpen we have had in years. And, injuries were there for the starting pitchers. There was times where we didn't go through, our pitchers didn't get 5 innings pitched for weeks on end. But you can't sit there and blow through a bullpen, even not just this year, years prior. I still say he burned out Ryan Brazier, because look what he's doing out there in LA, besides getting a nice tan. But I think AC has the mindset where he'd be great up in the front office. But I think it's time for him to go up there, DC. And the Celtics just did the similar move there in Boston with Brad Stevens. They went and moved him to team president in 2021. So it's not different or odd to hear that. But what are your thoughts about AC going upstairs?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to keep him in some capacity. So if he's not going to be the manager, I'd totally be all for it. Obviously, he doesn't have the experience, but you got to start somewhere. You'd have a lot of guys, with good baseball minds around him to help him out, in those times where you need some advice. So I'd be all for it. I think he's a smart guy, and he said too, he doesn't want to manage. He doesn't want to be a Tony La Russa type of guy or Dusty Baker. He wants to do his managing and then get out, at a decent amount of time. So I think it's a good fit. I'd be all for it, to be honest with you. It's just a matter if John Henry and the rest of them would put that trust in him. I think he does have a good relationship with the ownership, to an extent. He's obviously played there, managed there, so it'd be kind of fitting to him to be in the front office.
Yeah, I think he has to have a real good relationship, because why else would the ownership hold his job for him pretty much? After the whole suspension. No other team would really do that, you know what I mean? So I sit there and really think AC, with his relationships that he has and makes with the players, that's where he can sit there and help with the deals up in the front office, bringing players in, because he knows the game. He's played the game. So I think overall AC would be probably, in my opinion, the best fit overall for the Boston Red Sox. But it all stems down to one thing. And our one of our fans, Eric Katz, tagged us in this Twitter post. John Henry is the real Red Sox problem. It was written by Eric Katz. So if you guys get a chance, check out the article. But he goes into really, deep thing. Why Bloom is ultimately responsible for Boston's failures, owners John Henry and Fenway Sports Group have created a lot of issues in the organization. One big issue that the Sox ownership has is that it can't stick to an organizational approach. In recent years, nobody who runs the Red Sox baseball operations lasts longer than 5 years. The Red Sox real problem is John Henry and Fenway Sports Group. It goes on overall. It's a great article. Go out and check it out and read it. I love when Eric tags us in some of these articles because he gets really deep into these. DC, if you get a chance to check it out and read it, we have it bookmarked on our Twitter for the Pesky Podcast. So, but it's been a crazy week overall.
Yeah. To say the least.
Yeah, us going from playing GM to looking for a GM in real life. Now we've got several options. We just need somebody to be able to bring us back to the championship. I think overall with our hitting is great. A couple key pieces. Our farm system is superb now. The bullpen is good. I like it. I'm still a big fan of bringing Josh Hader in. It's our starting pitching that we really need to focus on to get us to that next level. So, DC, what are your final thoughts overall on this crazy week and, what's been going on in baseball altogether?
Yeah, I mean, big changes, obviously. One thing that it does signal, I think I saw it on Jared Krabus's podcast, is it means that the ownership is ready to start making some moves. So I guess that's the silver lining. I wish they would have let him, at least finish out the season, save face a little bit there. I think I'm not really a big fan of, using somebody as a scapegoat, especially after they did what, you asked them to do. Obviously the major league product hasn't been there. That's a big thing, as far as, being head of baseball operations. But I don't know. I'm hoping that they start taking it seriously. They start opening up their checkbooks a little bit, start also making some trades, using some of that farm system. Don't butcher it all, but, move a couple pieces down there and get some really, really good major league talent. And as far as baseball, I mean, I'm just excited for the postseason. Obviously the Red Sox aren't going to be there, which sucks, but I'm really excited for this O's team, to be honest with you. I told our friend Josh that as far as I'm concerned, the rest of the season going into the postseason, I'm rooting for them to represent the AL East. I think they're a really exciting team. I just don't know if their starting pitch is going to hold up throughout the postseason, because that's when you really need your pitching to really shine. But their offense is pretty lethal. When you got the teams like, a team like the Braves, I think the Braves can do a lot of damage. They have the pitching. They obviously have the offense. Their offense is insane. I've seen them be down, a handful of runs, look back later, and they're up by 3, you know what I mean, after being down 6. So I'm excited for the postseason. I'm just excited for the off season. It sucks that I'm saying I'm excited for the off season, because obviously that means we're not in the playoffs, but I'm really interested to see how John Henry and, Fenway Sports Group handles this. I hope that they don't go too crazy with this search. I know you got to be thorough, but I don't want it to drag too long into the offseason, because if it goes past the World Series and the free agency, how much does that affect signing guys? Are we going to miss out on some people? Are we going to miss out on some trades that we could have got on? So I don't know. I'm trying to be positive. I think now's the time where you kind of show what we have as far as an ownership group and, how serious you are for this team. Because I know a lot of people have questioned their commitment to the team after they've gone in other endeavors as far as business. So we shall see.
Yeah, it's really crazy. It's going to be I love how you make the point of we got to get the right guy soon, because we don't want to miss out on anything in free agency. So, because there's people we need, trades need to get done. So Yamamoto needs to be signed. So yeah. It's a lot here. Any final thoughts at all that you want to throw out there before we go?
I think I covered it, to be honest with you. Everything I got.
Okay. Well, guys, make sure you head on over to YouTube, follow us, check out our live show. That Alex Hoppe interview we had exploded over there on YouTube. I was like, wow, that's crazy for the amount of views over there. Also, make sure you anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, check us out. We had some great interviews. DC and I, we had Keith Folk on here, Devin Marrero, Theo Denlinger, our boy Hunter Dobbins, which DC's got to come back on after the season's over. There's going to be a lot once the season ends. There's going to be a lot of guys that are going to be coming on and talking to us. Hey, go to our website. Check out our new shirts we've got. We've got the Throw Some Dirt on It, Turner Tough. We've got Mi Casa as Su Casa, Halkamania. We just went and released the Brian Bayo one, Strikeouts for All. Get your shirt, But we want to thank you guys for tuning in, and we're going to check you out for DC and myself. See you next time on the Pesky Podcast.